Ready anytime you are. All right, we are lipping, but we are on the air. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Board of Selectmen open August 8th, 2024 at 6 p.m. I just wanted to know that we're having some audio difficulties. I don't think we'll be able to get tonight, but I believe that everybody on Zoom can hear us. So, probably, that's right, probably won't be perfect. Item number 2, approve the July 25th, 2024 Selectmen meeting minutes. I have first, I have second, all in favor? 5-0. Public forum, this is an opportunity for anyone who wants to address the Board of Selectmen with any issue that is not on the agenda. Why not? You want to speak up? Oh, sorry.
So I'm back again about the report causeway thing. Last time I was here, last month, I didn't really have any of the documents into you now, and it just seems to me that none of the way that the whole process was done and what was done at the causeway is totally in opposition to what's in the easement. And there's just, you know, the easement says it's supposed to have to be clear access, it's supposed to be a certain width and all that. And even the new information, the new upgraded agreement says that it's supposed to be 13 feet wide instead of 8 feet wide. So I feel like it's kind of a an issue with, you know, I don't know if that's something that needs to be put on the agenda for the next meeting.
Well, I can tell you this. The property isn't long enough. And we have any, but it is rewritten. And when it was rewritten, the owners did not want parking, and they didn't want commercial activity. And they never wanted commercial. And the only thing that we could do was, we wanted to make sure we had kayak access for the residents, and everybody that wanted to use it. The recreation. It never really set up. Their intention was to never have it. You know, over the years, in the beginning, many years ago, people used it, often used it, everybody used it, but we didn't own the product. So we had to go ahead and go into an agreement so we could use it somewhat. And so we need to say, there's something that we can do.
Well, but there is no new easement. The easement is still the same that it was from 2016. There's an email stating like a wish list from the owners, but that's it. That doesn't override an easement.
So the email that you're discussing with the items on it was their written approval, and those were the parameters they put on giving their approval.
There's nothing about commercial activity.
So I agree with you, there's nothing about commercial activity like that. But they did make it clear to the board that they did not want commercial activity throughout this discussion, and the board did.
So it wouldn't be in writing and it wouldn't have to be recorded in a new deed.
It does not have to be recorded.
So, okay, then what about just in general, all of these things that are in that, as far as the width of it, and as far as the bollards, the granite blocks and all of that. First of all, if the bollards wider granite blocks, that we can drive down there. It's basically a private launch for the stone neighborhood. So why,
There was a lot of input into the final design.
but it's only accessible to, so there's granite blocks so that vehicular traffic doesn't go off the side, but there's no way for that to happen because it's bollards. So the taxpayers
So
are
I'm
to pay for a nice improved boat ramp for the HOA without having access.
I would say the state of Maine, received funds from the federal government, and that's how those funds were used for that project. And so I'm not sure what your question is.
Well, I'm wondering why, if you're saying that the agreement between the town and the bullet point list has certain things in it, but that's not what's actually in it. Why? Why?
So,
was it-
I'm happy to take direction from the board, and continue to work with the residents, but I would say it has been an elongated conversation over, many, many months.
But it's basically the town's decision to not allow commercial access. The town could just.
No, not correct. The correct answer is Stone Haven did not want to have any commercial access to the lawn. And the only way that we could get kayak access in was to agree to that.
Why?
So something was better than nothing for the town to be able to use that as a kayak.
You already have it. They can't take it away.
Certainly,
They can't dissolve it easily.
it's their profit.
It's very easy. You can't dissolve it.
We can't argue.
I mean, the issue is that the easement said if we did substantial work, we needed written approval. And we were doing substantial, work, and that was the reopener. We did consult with our attorneys. We had attorneys review it. I mean, we didn't just go into this willingly. And we did look at both sides of that. And so ultimately it was a decision for the board to make, and they wanted to keep the kayak access. I don't think, they were pleased with all the changes, but they were doing their best to keep kayak access open and do the project.
Thank you.
Any more from the public? So moving on. Public hearing. Public hearing for the new special amusement permit used by One World Restaurant located at 43 Ocean Avenue. Staff has recommended approval. They're gonna go ahead and function the 50th anniversary coming up, and we want to go ahead and have some light music. And we put the pleasure of the board. No action. So I don't know. Okay. Anybody from the public has anything to talk about, please? Hearing none. Is there anybody on Zoom?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay, I'll close the public hearing. What's the board's wishes?
Make a motion to offer the a liquor license special amusement permit, special amusement permit submitted by the Arundel Wharf Restaurant located 43 Ocean Avenue.
I have a first and a second. All in favor? We can definitely have discussion.
Oh, no. Thank you for giving me the money. So when I read the email with more specifics, so I just wanted to be clear on what the intent is, right? So the intent is specifically their 50th anniversary that they called out, which was a great thing. And then also between, I think it was 4 and 7, some light acoustic music. And I just wanted to make sure that that was a different thing.
So I have a first and second. All in favor?
5-0. Thank you. Consider a liquor license renewal submitted by Amasa LLC, 1802 House Bed and Breakfast Inn located at 15 Rock Street, Kennebunkport. And staff recommends approval on this. I have a first.
Second.
I have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Fifth, consider liquor license renewal submitted by Reset LLC located at 2 Pier Road, Kennebunkport. Staff recommends approval. I have a first, I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Discussion regarding cart size for automated pickup with Casella representatives. Does anyone here from Casella?
You want to go over.
One was really tall. Good evening, everyone. Yanina Nicholas, Director of Support Services. So in preparation to moving towards automated pickup, trash pickup, town staff had multiple meetings with different parties. Those parties involved crew from Casella who are here today, and members from Cascade, whom we chose as our trash cans provider. I just want to give you a brief update on those meetings, and then I will let Casella add on and answer any questions. So meeting with Casella had the following bullet points. So when we discussed with Casella when we want to move towards automated pickup, the decision within the crew was that the best time would be May, if work agrees with that as well. And the reason being, firstly, Casella ordered the truck for Kennebunkport, but it's still not quite here. And it might come later in the fall, which means a lot of residents are not here. So if we will start bringing the trash cans, they might be left outside by those who are not here in the winter. So in May, a lot of people coming back home and summer starts. So it made a lot of sense for us to start this in May. Casella agreed, and we also talked with Cascade, who's the bin provider. They said if we will agree tonight on this, they will lock prices for us for the bins. When we talked, so that would be first week in May of trash cans delivery, and the second week in May, Casella would start automating. So the pickup will be both trash and recycling every week. That's important to note for everyone. So the next question was about trash carts sizes, and that's the questions that we asked both Casella and Cascade. So from Casella's point, and again they will speak for themselves, but what we gathered is that there's 35-gallon bucket, there is 64, and there is 96. What they see across state of Maine in different municipalities is 64-gallon buckets, and they do not recommend 35-gallon buckets because during winter months especially, they slip out from the arm and they fall in the receptacle, in the like large truck receptacle, and nobody will get them out. Yeah.
Guys, can you put the camera on the buckets on the bin? Can you reach it or not? Yeah, give me a second. Camera one should do it.
John said we would put a normal sized person.
Oh, all right.
Okay, they're on.
Yeah.
Kaylin, how tall are you? 6. No, you.
So switch to
Six.
that camera.
That's perfect.
That's good.
So when we talked about the 35-gallon bins, Casella mentioned that they will slip into a receptacle and nobody will get them out. This means
That's a 94.
this baby one. So basically it would slip and fall into receptacle and we would not get it out. That means that residents would have to request a new one every time we lose it. It may happen, it might not, but from Casella standpoint, it does happen. So the recommendation from Casella was to go to 64, and the discussion was as following. We would ask the board to allow us to order 64th gallon buckets across for everyone, but allow residents who want other options such as 96 or 35 to request them from, we will have an assigned person at the town hall. This way, if somebody will not be happy with the 64 size, they will have an option to order a different one. But generally, they will at least try the recommended by our trash collection vendor ones. When we met with Cascade, basically the conversation was very similar, except Cascade said that ever since COVID, they've seen municipalities ordering 96s. And they did show us Excel with all the municipalities with whom they work currently, and all of them were 96. But those municipalities. Yeah, I also want to mention those municipalities were not in Maine. They were outside of Maine. We did a little research, and there are not many communities in Maine that actually do have 96. The majority has 60.
How often were those picked up weekly at the 96? For those, do we know they were weekly collection?
I do not know. I could
That's
not tell you that.
I think that could be an interesting thing to know.
Yeah.
96 is awfully big for someone's garage.
And that's true. And in Maine, those who do have 96, they tend not to have recycling. So that's just another point to consider. So I would like to invite him earlier. Yeah.
So when we met. When we met with Cascade, they were talking about the new 35 gallon, that they hadn't had any problems with that. No, 35.
Yes, so that is actually a new 35 gallon, and what they did, as it was explained to us, they enlarge wheels, so wheels would kind of catch on the arm. And again, we do not say that we're banning those, we're just saying we can give an option, but we would like to go with 64 all across and give residents an option. Also, what Casella recommended previously was they developed a form for different communities for those people who do want smaller cans. So if you have medical problems, longer driveway, or if you're a single person, there are multiple different tiers. You can request it because it probably makes sense, but they just don't think it makes sense. And you guys can speak.
Well, I mean, I'm in favor of the 64 myself,
Mhm.
but I just want to make sure that we could get some 35s to, because there are people that will only fill that up, and the small ones, and they're a lot lighter than the other ones. So I would get some of them.
Yeah. And I think through the program, as I said, if residents were gonna request those, I think we would be open to do that.
It's important when people are considering that, they get one bucket, only one. It's not like having for
One for
trash,
trash.
one for recycling, but it's not like you would have 5 32s at the end of a driveway, as some people have. So you've gotta make sure we keep that in mind. They get one each.
So can I ask, or do you want to go first? What does Biddeford use?
So Biddeford has two different sizes trash cans, and there are reasons for two different size trash cans. Biddeford uses 35 gallons for trash. And reason being, they do not outsource trash pickup, and they do not do automated pickup. They do it in-house. So for a human to actually dump it, that would be very hard if it was bigger than that. And they do use 64s for recycling because I believe Casella, you guys pick up, because Casella picks up their recycling. So that's why they use two different sizes.
Yeah, so when you ride down by Biddeford Pool, it just doesn't seem that the recycling bin is that much bigger than garbage.
We actually have employee who lives in Biddeford, and I actually drove yesterday to Biddeford. It was their trash day, and I stopped. stopped and looked because it was like green and we were discussing this. So one is 64 and the other one is 35. The green small one is 35 and the bigger one is 64 for example.
Yeah, okay, optically, it did look that way when it's written. I take it, okay, so then, so I just want to make sure that, like, so when we're listening to, or if a resident comes in and wants the smaller one for whatever reason, we're not saying that they have to meet something on the checklist, they're able to get. what they
It
want.
depends. That's, I would say that up to the board, really. Casella recommended the checklist. If you guys want to go with the checklist, sure. I think that will be up to you.
Yeah, I think I personally feel that if a resident makes a conscious decision that they want a smaller one, I think they should be able to get it. Knowing that the town is recommending that you go to the middle one, but so there would be a smaller number of people that may request a smaller one.
The second time it's lost in the bin because it fell into the bin, then it would be on the resident to have to pay if that were the case. So again, there's some practicalities we have to look at.
But they have redesigned the bin, so it may not, we'll have to wait and see, jury's out. Okay,
Well, this is already redesigned. This is the new one. Yeah. That's right. Yes.
You don't know, so we can't.
We can't hear you, Mary Beth.
That's correct.
so the jury's still out, right?
I think my questions have been answered. So we're getting a trash bin and a recycling bin.
Yes.
Are they different colors?
So when we talked to Cascade, they gave us all the different color palettes, but what they recommended was to get the same color bins with different colored lids. And you, again, that's probably up to the board. If you want two different colors, we can go this way. The reason for the same color bins but different lids is cost saving, because you can just swap the lid if you don't have the bin available at this time, and you can order a lid without ordering the whole bin. Yeah, and I think a lot of communities have a similar setup.
And my other question would be also asked, Kennebunk and Bitterford, those cans tend to be 64. I don't know if it's something they, when we drive around, they seem to be the middle
So
size.
in Kennebunk, they are 64 and Casella picks up Kennebunks as well. And in Biddeford, they just answered, there are two different sizes.
One of them that you do see is 60.
Yes, okay. Any other questions? To me?
So we found out. Just the audience.
It sounds like what you're saying is the 35 is at your own risk. Because of the design that you might not get it back. But you get two chances with that? Is that my understanding? Okay.
The board is discussing it, but I think it might be helpful to hear from Casella before you make up your mind about that.
What size we want to start with?
Yes, sorry. My name is Talia Ben. I'm the municipal account manager for Casella. I work with Rick and our market area manager, Chris McHale, to help manage all of these municipal curbside. So regarding the 35s, they have been an issue in the city of Westbrook. What we've realized is that exactly what Nina has been saying, there is a chance that they will be lost in the hopper. At that point, we cannot have our driver climb up and pull them out. It's obviously a huge safety issue. And they would have to contact the town to receive another container. Where you might run into an issue with that is the more you lose, the more you have to replace that inventory. But so it could be a cost to the town. Or however you would want to deal with that. Sounds like it's still to be decided. Most of the municipalities we work with in southern Maine have the standard 64s. And something I want to note too is we're moving towards weekly recycling. If it were every other week recycling and weekly trash, we'd probably recommend the 96 for recycling, just so, you know, folks can hold their recycling for 2 weeks and have that space. Bedford specifically, as I mentioned, they do their own trash collection. The reason why they have the 32s is one, to mitigate the tonnage. And then also, they have been performing rear load collection themselves. They recently did purchase automated trucks. Unfortunately, one of them is out of service, so they're continuing to use the rear load, but it makes it easier for the laborers on the back to dump them manually.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So have you tried any of the new 35 gallon?
We have not. I don't know what Biddeford has. I know they have Cascade carts. I'm assuming that they're not the new design, so I obviously can't speak to whether or not the new design would work. I mean, we're willing to work with the town and try it out. I would just, on the record, our concern would be the loss of the carts.
We said that the gentleman that was talking to us from Cascade said that the new carts, they just started using them not that long ago, a month or two ago, but they had no issues with it. They were working.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we're willing to pick them up. I think it's great that there are different options for the residents, because you are gonna find that, you know, if you deploy the 64s, there are gonna be some folks who say, you know, that trash can isn't big enough, is too big. It's always great to work with residents on their specific needs. You need to mention the form that we have for certain municipalities. Mostly it's to kind of mitigate the amount of requests coming in right off the bat. So typically it's, you know, of a certain age, your driveway is 200 feet or more, or you have a disability that would limit you from rolling the cart out to the end of your driveway, mostly used in more rural locations, like Pownell, Dayton. But I don't foresee a lot of that here in Kennebunkport.
Can you get a 64 trash can? And could you get a 96 recycling bin if you wanted? Only because there's a lot of people have a lot of cardboard. So would that be an option?
Yeah, I think if the town decided on that, that is definitely an option.
You have to the residents. You just mentioned, you made it up, you just brought up some benefit, not having their automatic truck is out of service. What would happen in Kennebunkport if our truck, your truck, Kennebunkport went out of service and was out of service for a couple of weeks? Would
So-
we end up going back to manual pickup?
So we would have a backup ASL truck, and if something happened where there was no additional ASL, we would go back to the rear loader, but the rear loaders have cart tippers on the back. So there'd be a laborer on the back of the truck still, but they can wheel the cart over the cart tipper to tip the cart into the.
So, do we know what Biddeford is doing once? So is this Biddeford's long term that they will always, or they have an automated truck and the automated truck picks up their small ones for trash, or do we have an insight to what they're doing?
I don't know about cart size for them. I know it has been an issue. Right now, their standard is 35s, and then any overflow goes into an orange pay-as-you-throw bag. With the automated system, you run into issues with bags, you can't pick them up. So I don't know, I can't speak for the city, but there could be discussions, you know, we have to move to a bigger trash cart to try to get less people to be using the pay-as-you-throw bags as the overflow to a 35.
Yeah, I was thinking more about the pickup.
I know their second truck is out of service, they are using one, and then the backup truck is the manual. I believe they're waiting on insurance claims to try to figure out if they're gonna fix the second ASL, but I would say yes, their long term is to continue with the automated pickup.
So our goal would be to have a default, which we're recommending a 64 gallon. We order those, we order some of the larger and smaller, but everybody gets delivered a 64. We don't take orders ahead of time. Everybody in the industry has recommended to us that's not the way to go. have everybody try out the default bin for a month or two. Have them call in, if things really aren't working, ask them to try it. And then address those that need changes after that.
Typically what Casella, when we're rolling out our parts, because we manage some programs, we say to the residents, you know, give it 2 weeks with a 64 gallon part. If it's still too big after that, then we'll figure something out, or too small, yeah, exactly. Most of the time, you're gonna find that these parts are pretty easy to maneuver, they're not super heavy, it's really about what you're putting into the part. So if you're putting stuff in there that's heavy, it's gonna be heavy and hard to move.
Eric, did you wanna add anything?
Just everyone bringing up Bedford, and I know in Bedford, they see a pickup truck every now and again running around with bin maintenance for wheels that fall off and cabs. How does that play into this?
You wanna talk to Eric?
I've been having run some of these programs before. Usually what we'll do is we'll go out and actually drop it in, throw it back in our truck, drop them off at the same time, go back, bring it back to the shop and. I mean, that's standard. That will happen. Wheels definitely break, sometimes the lids snap off, winter time, things like that. Get rid of. But it's not much of a task to.
And I just wanna add to that, that's why I put the card color of the same color would make sense too, because then you can swap plates and keep in stock what you have. And I don't know if this will matter to whatever your discussion gonna be, but anytime we'll order from Cascade, their minimum order is $55.
Thank you.
From Paul Parnell or Red, anyone. This is really big, but I'm going to ask. Is there a size between the 64 and the 35?
So we talked to Cascade about in-between size, which is typically 48. And they do not have 48s because they said it's unusual for municipalities to order those. So they never developed 48. Yes, what they said that Eric is correct, that they send us dimensions for 48, and actually they're pretty much have the same footprint as what 64s. It just yes, the how tall it is, that's what matters, but footprint stays the same.
So, just a couple of things. So I understand the try it for a couple of months, but I know my own personal situation that I have one situation where I will need the small. Because I just can't just fit a larger. And the second thing I'd like to bring up to the board and just think through, which is, because we do have the private roads that we've talked about. We do have people that have come and talked to us about, they currently put their cans in their car and drive them down to the end. Is it something that we would consider either, in, I don't know what board or committee it would be on, but would we start allowing, some recyclable or some garbage bin enclosures to be built? You know, so for example, right now we have lot size coverage, we have a lot of restrictions about what you can put on properties, but you know, can we start allowing, for those of us that don't have garages, that use the basements, that these things won't fit in, they literally won't fit through the door. Can we start allowing, can we look at allowing some ordinance change or something so that people can build some container units so that they can roll these in and lock them up and keep the bears and raccoons and wildlife away. Did you like how I ended that? A little bit like away.
So that, I just need a nod from Galen that that's the kind of thing that would need a permit, be factored into ordinance size if you want to build a shed at the side of the road. So that's a really good thought.
Thanks, John.
I'm just, are you talking a shed at the end of the road for some people, or are you talking just an enclosure, let's say attached to a garage? So that, you could just put them in.
And do what? Both.
Okay.
Eric brought it up and Rick also made a good point. The new design on the Cascade Park hasn't been tested in the winter. Has, okay. That's when we see the most issues. Oh, it hasn't. Okay. So I think that's where we see the most issues is slick, icy, cold weather. So it'll be just something to keep an eye on.
Thank you. Any more questions? Good question.
What will happen if we need something replaced? What's the procedure? It's,
Well, you would text me. Then I would get on it. If people need something fixed or broken, it's like in Kennebunkport, what I do, I call the public works line and I tell them my address, I tell them what's wrong and they come out and repair it. And then the same would be here. They would just call the public works phone number. If they needed a new one, we would say, why do you need a new one? And if it's because it was broken, we'd replace it, you know. I think we would try to track things. When Cascade will deliver these as part of our contract. And that's another reason why, you know, it's good to have a default. Because you give them basically a list of addresses and they're trying to make sure that all this information gets to the right addresses. And when you start adding other types of bin at this address versus that address, it starts to create a lot of complications that we will have to clean up. So once they do that, they will mark, see the numbers on those bins, those numbers will be in the spreadsheet. So it'll say at 6 Elm Street, you know, here's the numbers that are assigned. So we can track those in the future, and then we would give you a new one with a new number and we put it in our database. So hopefully, you know, if you kept missing one, we probably have to have more of a conversation.
Any more questions?
In your experience, do you have any residences or businesses that you pick up from that actually need more than just because the volume of trash that they do in a week, especially in the summer?
So I would say not for the current communities that we manage the park program for. There are many communities that manage their own park program, like Kennebunkport is going to do, like South Coast Road. I don't necessarily know what their policies are. Where we would be concerned about having extra parts out there is with capacity of the trucks. So when we do switch to the every week recycling, we intend to use split body trucks, so we're picking up trash and recycling at the same time, whereas now we're picking up in separate trucks. And with the significant population increase in the summer, we're already pretty heavy this time of year. So I guess our main concern would be, we would have to understand the number of residents that are interested in the second part. And just make sure that it's something we could do fast wise and time wise, because it's extra time spent at each site.
What are we doing for beach pickup during the summer months? Are we doing daily or is it a week? Goose Rocks Beach.
Beach barrels,
But you said it,
beach barrels or residents?
Beach barrels.
The beach barrels are daily, right now. That's how it's done. In the future, TBD, God willing, we'll be able to keep the automated barrels there. But remember, this is one of the thrusts that we're doing now as the advisory committee is trying to educate people that they cannot leave trash outside of the barrel. Unfortunately, that is a consistent problem with Goose Rocks. And when the trash is outside the barrel, it cannot be picked up by the automatic system. It'll just stay there. And you can imagine the mess. So this is, we're hoping that that we can educate the folks to do it. But if it turns out that there are things left beside the barrel, we'll be faced with the issue of having to go to a carry in, carry home policy and not have beach bins. So that's a possibility. We're hoping to avoid it. But again, if things are left outside the barrel, there's no avoiding the problem.
So I just have a couple just comments then, since we seem to be coming to a closure on this one. So I'm okay with the 64s at least. I mean, I think I'll wait to hear from the rest of the board. I'm okay with having the ability to size up or size down, knowing that there's a unknown on the size down. I'm not willing until we know the failure rate of the size down to put that burden on the residents yet. We can revisit it once we have more data. But right now, I think in the town, we would allow the size down to happen for reasons. I don't want to be a judge and jury on people's reasons. I want to make sure if they have a viable reason, if they think they need it, that obviously we're asking for 64, but if they think they need it, then we will allow them to have it after a 2-month period or whatever the period is. So that's
I do want to also mention, you mentioned having a second barrel, a second being a third in this case, having either a second recycling or a second trash barrel. The town has a contract with the seller, and that contract allows for 1 trash and 1 recycling. If an individual wishes to have more than 1 of either, it needs to be a separate agreement. Either with Casella, that you'll have to work out the nuts and bolts, but this is not a case, unfortunately, where a resident can just say, oh, I want a second one, and Casella will just pick up 3. They can't do that. We are under contract to pick up 2 barrels per resident, and that's it.
So I would just say too, we would prefer the size up option over the second part option. So with 2 64-gallon carts, 128 gallons trash or recycling versus the 96, if you need a little bit more room, the 96 will fly that.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate it. Support that. I think we need a motion on the default size of the trash cans.
I'd like to move that we use the default size of 64 gallons and acquire sufficient 96 and 32 to be able to 35 to be able to respond to a reasonable level of alternative.
Have a first and second. Any more discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Thank you, Lee. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Item A, consideration of short-term rental cap proposal for 2025 and penalty for process for short-term rental violations. Okay, Alan.
Good evening, Select Board. Yes, I come here tonight with a bunch of action items for you, and it's all related to short-term rental licenses. And so our first item is regarding what your new licenses, what your percentage would be, your formula for issuing any new short-term rental license. Historically, you use 9.5% of the total dwelling units outside of Goose Rocks Beach. If you decide to go that route, I did the calculations in my memo for you. You'd be increasing your number of licenses, which are capped by 2 additional licenses for a total of 237. So I can answer any questions you might have about this section.
How many folks are on the waiting list right now?
We have approximately
4-0.
Yeah. And again, we don't know, when people renew, later this year, how many will be on that wait list?
How many dropped off last cycle? What was?
Well, there was about 20.
About 20 that dropped off?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because if someone sells their property too, that doesn't transfer with them, they have to reapply.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we saw 20, we have 4, so, but we don't have as much extra as I was thinking, right?
New people apply and, some people don't renew, so. That's,
If I recall, we just did a new contract with a new vendor who would help you be able to track these licenses, so. I just want. Do you feel, I mean, 2 licenses, not huge increase, do you think that? How do you think that vendor's gonna help you?
So they will help us with compliance. That's something we don't really have a very good, grasp of right now because Granicus, our current host compliance, we noticed they counted our wait listed as actually in compliance, because there's some of those folks on wait list who are actually, posting right now. They're actually, renting right now. So they're not in compliance with your ordinance. Yes. So this will hopefully help us to differentiate those individuals who are on the wait list, but not in compliance.
Yeah, no, that's what I was getting at, and what's coming.
Yeah.
Personally, I think I'd like to keep the percentage the same. If we add 2, we add 2. It's not a huge difference. I think I'd need a real reason to change the percentage. And I don't see a driving reason from what I've heard to change the percentage. So if the percentage means 2, in my opinion, it's 2.
I'll agree with that.
So any more discussion on this? We can go ahead and vote on this right now and go to the second one. How about a motion?
Make a motion that we leave the cap at, the percentage at 9.5 and we increase by 2 to 237. That's my motion.
I have a first and second. Any more discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
Okay,
Okay, the
next.
second half.
Yes, well, the next, this is just an FYI, again, we mentioned this at the last, meeting when we are switching software providers. From Granicus to GovOS. There will be a difference in the application open enrollment period, and that will be November 1st. So I just wanted to keep you aware of that. Before, it's historically been October 1st. So we will be doing an outreach and there'll be stuff in the newsletter about it that, folks know ahead of time that there will be a month delay. Yes, yeah. The next item on the memo is the penalty schedule. So this is something that is in your short-term rental license ordinance under 129-10B. The select board has to establish a fee schedule. And so when our staff's been reviewing the ordinance, we noticed I don't have such a document. And so I talked to the town manager to make sure there wasn't anything that was missing, and the select board never established a fee. And so what staff did for you is we drafted 2 possible scenarios that you could go off of that were based off of the National League of Cities had a proposed schedule, and Bar Harbor had a schedule. There are 2 that have dealt with this for a while. And so we gave you those 2 schedules in here. How I will explain it to you is that first row that you'll see is for basically people who are non-compliant. They don't have a current license, a short-term rental license. And so they have a violation fee schedule there. And the second row down is dealing with individuals who do have a license, but because of being inspected or complaints that we receive, there is a fee schedule for them that is separate. So if the board has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
second line.
Yep, so the second line is for people who are current licensees, that they are actually licensed. And either we get complaints about noise, about, the tenants, or we get complaints about code issues, trash, odor problems. Or we go and to inspect them and they have fire alarms missing in the respective areas. That would be a violation for a licensee.
Can't hear you.
So, and so within our, so a noise violation is in our code for renting.
Yeah, there's a good neighbor policy that all them have to follow, and they are supposed to post them for the tenants to understand how to be a good neighbor to the surrounding community.
Is State Farm there?
But there's a 7-day period which they have to comply to any noise before these fines kick in, right? So there's always that 7-day period.
That's our next step. Yeah, that's our next topic, I guess.
Well, yeah, but you're asking me to approve the fines before I know what the driving thing is to make the fine.
So we give them a warning of 10 days, and then if they're not in compliance, then they get the violation. They have 7 days
Take
to
7.
correct that, and it keeps going down.
So the warning's 10 with no fine.
Yeah.
Then the first level is, you'll talk about the levels in a
Yeah,
minute, but
yeah.
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
with this numbers. I'm not quite sure. When I looked at these numbers, and the difference is that one is higher than the other. Everything else is the same, right?
Yes.
One has a $200 a day fine and the other has a $250, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I personally, I'd rather do the lower one first. We can always raise it if it finds out that these teeth aren't sharp. So in my mind, I would go with the lower, but
Yeah, I want to give you guys the options, whatever you guys feel.
just my thought to the group.
We just need something on the books. Right now, we don't have.
So the fourth violation, upon the fourth or subsequent violation in any 12-month period, the local government may suspend and revoke an employment. So a person could be in the middle of the rental season and trip that switch. And then they have contracts with visitors coming in. Right, so that's what they, so that's. No,
Before they get there, they've been paying $200 a day on the first. Are these cumulative?
Yes.
$200 a day on the first, and the second violation, which would be a month, would be 3 weeks later. And they still haven't fixed the problem. They're paying $600 a day. And then with a week after that, they haven't fixed the problem. I mean, my gosh, we got a real issue here. Yeah, you're gonna shut it down. I think we need to.
So is everybody happy with the Schedule A? Or is this, do you want to look at, we haven't even discussed B yet, I mean,
Yeah, they're just the same. There's different
Okay.
numbers.
there's
That's really,
nothing, I don't see anything different
no.
besides, fine.
No, that's pretty much the same. The other thing I want to mention to you is the whole interest. There is a little footnote there. That was something that was not mentioned in either of the ordinances, but I thought it's worth mentioning to you all. It's been past practice for the town of Kennebunkport to follow the interest schedule from the state of Maine for back taxes and other things. So I just wanted that footnote explained to you, but it's been general past practice.
Has any of these rules been tested by lawyers? I mean, can they turn around and say to the town, well, listen, we don't feel we need to follow this. Has any, because I'm always aware of, it's great to pass all your rules and regulations, but if you can't enforce them, it's kind of senseless.
Yeah, it's my understanding that has been the case. It has been enforced. Before I'd have to go back and get you actual examples, but I mean, Bar Harbor's been doing this for multiple years now. And the state of Maine has passed state statutes that allow for municipalities to institute short-term rental licenses. So I think we're on solid ground.
So in regards to fines and the penalties, I mean, staff always do their best to work with individuals, but it is important for us to let people know what those fines and penalties are, because people do weigh that in their decision making. In any case, the Board of Selectmen always has the authority to negotiate, develop consent agreements, or decide to go to court. So ultimately, if you have a party that is not willing to cooperate, then court action. So in the past couple of years, we had an individual who put a shed on their property without a building permit. We worked with them. They said they were not under the authority of the local government or the state of Maine. And we went back and forth with them, and ultimately the board decided to go to court. And they ended up paying our attorney's fees as well as the fines and got the permit. So, I mean, it happens. I think 80% of the time people work with us, and our goal is to work with them just to stop the violations. And then the other times we usually come to the board and say, this is where we're at. We've done the best we can. Do you want to go to court, or what action do you want to take?
If I look at the two lines, Galen, the top and the bottom, so it's advertising online or offline without obtaining, and then your second line is providing any other requirements. So the any other requirements would be actually renting, like having somebody in there, regardless if they're advertising.
So I guess the way I would describe this is it'd be for any other violations of your ordinance. So there are people who sometimes they advertise more occupancy, or they use basements, which aren't actual bedrooms, and they have bunk beds, like that's considered a violation. Not having smoke alarms, smoke detectors in each of the rooms, that's a possible violation. Blocking egress, that's a possible violation. There's a lot of different violations that can occur on the premise. It's more for those that aren't licensed would be that top tier. Those that are licensed would be that next tier.
Those that aren't licensed are the top of the bottom.
The top. The ones that aren't licensed are the top.
So if I'm renting,
Yep.
I don't have a permit, I'm not even advertising,
Well, you have a license.
I don't have a license.
Okay, then you're the top.
I don't have a license.
Yep.
I'm renting, I'm
Yep.
not even advertising.
Yep.
These people are just showing up every year, and then I'm on the top.
Yep.
Yep, somehow.
It does sound like we're hammering the people who have a license harder than the ones who don't.
So you are doing that, and there's a reason for that. Because they are licensed, the municipality could be liable for knowing about these fire safety, life safety violations, not having them corrected in a timely manner. So the license would be more for those that are licensed, because you know about this instance. When they're not licensed, you don't know where they're located in some instances. There's less liability involved in that regards, if that makes.
So if they're not licensed, do they not just get shut down automatically?
No,
So that is.
that's up to you. Actually, it's up to the board. If you guys want to change the next section about the violation policy. I gave a 3 strikes rule, but you guys do.
No, so I think I think that's where, I think the point that John just. You know, if somebody's following the process in the queue, they get their license, they're doing their due diligence, oops, you know, somebody's put a bunk bed in front of some windows, and now they're getting fined, and then so they're trying. And then you have somebody that blows into the system that never got licensed and just got caught. I feel that they shouldn't get 3 strikes because they've already got 1 strike. They've already got 3 by rebumping the system. It basically puts our whole system, they cause fraud on the whole lottery.
Yeah, I guess I kind of agree. You have 3 strikes. This is the one where you have the 7 days, 10 days, 7 days, 7 days. Yeah, that's too long. Yeah.
So when we're saying 3 strikes, we would call them as soon as we found out and say, you need to shut down. But when we go to court, people are gonna say, what notice did you give them? So we have to give them a time period in order to shut down. So we have to give them notice of their violation. So when we're talking about 3 strikes, we're saying the first one is, we're gonna tell you that you have shut down and you don't have a license and that's not allowed. If we find out that you have not shut down in that first time period, then the second one is now you're incurring fines. And then if they continue to incur fines, number 3 is we need help from you to go to court, because that's the only way we're gonna collect if they're not cooperative. So we're telling them from the get-go, they gotta shut down. We're not saying you can keep open for a while, or I have this big wedding coming this weekend. No, you're not allowed, you gotta shut down now. But it's really about first warning someone, second fining them, 3 court action.
Any more question? You think?
Well, again, if you want to,
Have a question.
Chance, I appreciate this discussion. I wonder if I don't have a license, and you tell me to get one, you should not increase your cap. So getting a license is not a way to cure. Yeah. Shut down, right?
That's correct.
Can't hear you.
Like to follow Chaz, you say you're glad to get a license. If someone comes to you who has been renting illegally, they're in the Goose Rock zone, they can just come and get a license?
No, they have to wait till the open enrollment period. Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah.
So the next year they could get a
Yeah.
license, as long as they didn't violate something.
Yeah, as
further.
long as they're not habitually offending and still renting in defiance
Got
of the town.
Got it. Perfect.
Yep. Again, I would suggest not making a motion till you're happy with the policy that I'm going to discuss next, because you might want to change the schedule. I don't know. That's up to you.
Go for it.
Okay, so the next part is the actual draft procedure for how to deal with violations. And so what town staff did for you is, the select board controls all the regulations as it relates to the short-term rental licenses. And so the town staff thought we need some kind of guardrails to help code staff when they're out in the field and they're comfortable and confident knowing that the select board appreciates this potential procedure of what's being outlined here. And so you have 2 different sections. One section is regarding procedure for non-registrations. These are people who are not registered at all. And so you'll see the outline there is we give them a 10-day warning notice. This is like a friendly, hey, please stop what you're doing. You're not registered. In some cases, maybe it was we do enforcement and maybe they were licensed. We made a mistake, but at least we gave them a 10-day warning, no fee, no fines. Next, we have the failure of noncompliance within that time frame of 10 days results in the first violation being sent certified mail, and that requires 7 days of action. And that's when the fees are starting to occur as we speak. You'll see then that there is for subsequent violations of the second and third, there's another 7 days for each additional. At that point, because this is a non-registered, there is no hearing part required. The code enforcement officer would then send a report to the board of selectmen requesting that we take legal action for a non-compliant individual. So that's the process. It's a little bit shorter. There's no hearings involved for non-licensed entities. Are there questions regarding that?
So at that point, at that last 7-day increment, they would be paying $1,250 a day if we use our top schedule for those 7 days. So there's real teeth here in them not complying, correct?
You're referring to which
Schedule A,
Schedule A.
top line,
Yep, so they'd be at 650.
plus the 400 for the previous 7 days.
No, so it goes as 250 per day for those 7 days, and then the next 7 days would be at the 400.
Oh, because we're not cumulative. That's
No,
what
it's
I
not
asked
cumulative.
earlier, and
No.
I didn't understand
Yeah.
what you said.
Yeah.
All right, but anyway, it's 650.
Right. Yeah. So that's the schedule for that. Again, you as the select board would be given that report, saying, look, we've tried 3 times to work with these individuals. They have not wanted to comply. We would request that, we need legal enforcement, and that's your prerogative to decide, if you want to go that route or not. So if there's no questions with that section. The next section is for licensed entities, and because your ordinance does have a hearing procedure in place before we can revoke a license. The procedure is outlined here. Again, we are doing a 10-day warning note, just no fines associated. If they still do not want to correct the violations, we would go to a 7-day notice. And then by the second violation, so that's another 7 days, we would be sending a report to the select board to schedule a public hearing for this individual who's in violation. At that point, that would start the 3rd violation. And so at that point, you would have your hearing, and based off that hearing, you would determine if they should have their license revoked, and you should be seeking legal action for enforcement. When you take action at that meeting, that would start the 4th violation of revoking their license, and we would take them to court that. So are there any questions on that section?
I'm not clear on, so after the first 7 days or the first 10 days,
There's no-
does the $200 start right then? What,
Yep, that would start.
after the 10
Yeah,
days?
after the 10 days.
And then
We would send
after
them a note. Yep.
7 days,
It goes
the
up to,
200 would have accumulated.
Yep.
And then you throw in another 400 per day after that.
right.
Okay.
Yep, it steps up.
Any more questions for Gail?
So how do you feel about enforcement? Like, how should we view about, enforcement? Are we really going to be able to have a solid look? And feel that, or are we just going to be focusing in on one segment because we can see them versus other areas? I'd like just to hear.
Yeah, I think, we probably haven't been enforcing to the best of our ability, because we've had staff turnover. And so I think giving some people some leeway, does help. I think, again, this is a whole new process. I'm comfortable with it. I think that we're giving people 3 strikes, plus a warning letter beforehand, to try to correct their actions, that are outstanding. And I think that the fee levels, the way they are, even if they're still not in compliance, but they're still trying to make something work, the economics aren't too punitive for them. So that's whatever the select board decides they feel is appropriate, but I think we're being pretty reasonable, giving them three strikes and enough time to make any corrective actions.
Just curious, Amy, how big of an issue is this?
Well, I have 14 properties right now that are in violation.
Meaning unlicensed and renting out?
Some are licensed, unlicensed, yes, but some are on the wait list, but they're still not licensed. We're continuing it out. Yep.
You think the new system?
What about license? Is there any violations?
So those that are licensed, if they're in violation of the ordinance because of inspections or complaints that are validated, that would be that second procedure we just talked about.
Right, but do you have any?
Oh, we have, 2, we did have 2, they did go into compliance. There was like an egress issue. It wasn't anything major. Usually people want to resolve the issue, and that's what our goal is. We do not really want to go. This is not a money making thing. We want clients. That's all we really want.
It sounds like it's working pretty good.
Yeah, I would just say that there was a lot of concern based on the number of complaints when the board put this ordinance before the town. I would say that since it's been in effect, we've been very fortunate. I think that people have been in compliance. We've gotten very few complaints. remember that we had a 5-year time period to do inspections. And so we really are in that inspection mode now since Galen arrived. Because of that staff turnover. And so that is bringing up some other issues, not neighbor complaints, but issues that we should address. I wouldn't say they're major for the most part. So I think we've had a very good compliance rate and people have been good to work with us.
Yeah, again, nothing's really boiled to the point, including the board. It's people want to address the issue and move on.
Any more questions?
I don't have a question. I'm just gonna make a comment. I like what you're doing and I'm ready to vote.
Is there anybody else in TV land or
I do not see anybody, no hands raised.
no hand? Is that all you have, Ken? Okay, so I'm ready for a motion. Yeah, we'll schedule. I thought that we were gonna schedule A.
Just one thought on scale. I misunderstood. I thought the fines were cumulative in the sense of the second batch was the sum of the first plus the second.
No.
The fact that it rolls over. Well, the 7 days at 200, that $1,400 is there, but the second. Sorry.
I believe they get 10 days before the 200.
And the next 7 days, it's 200. The second set of 7 days, it's 400. Okay, got it. Which 400, it doesn't, we're saying the same thing different. And looking at that, I prefer B. I was assuming that, again, the 200 went to 600. Now, I'd like the 250 going to 500. So to me, I think B is more appropriate. That seems like the right team.
I'm happy with A. I'd like to, well, I'll make a motion after this, but I don't think we need to gouge I think we put this into effect for a year and then in a year, if we.
How many lawns had left?
Yeah, I know. I said
But I'll say the other side.
Yeah.
So the other side of the argument is, we've given them ample warning. And we were really, as Galen said, this isn't supposed to be punitive, this is supposed to be working together. And so by the time you get to that third violation, you have somebody who's not working with you and we're headed to court. So I'm with John to say, let's get some money, because if we go to court, we're gonna be paying for that. And so I like the way it's work. Let's work with you. We're here to help, and then, but if you're in that third violation, we're engaging somebody that doesn't want to work down and you're gonna be in front of the board. And we've got fees to recover. So I'm in the B.
Can we do a combo?
You can change this to
Can we
what you
do
want.
first violation 200, second violation 400, and then third violation go to 1,000? Would that make everyone happy? I would go with A, Sheila, but I'm just. That's my thing is, let's get it done. See how many violations. Doesn't work in the first year, or it's then we can. They get it. I make a motion to, is this adopt? What is it? To adopt penalty schedule A as proposed. For the short-term rental violation ones.
And
And the procedures state as stated.
I have a first and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? 5-0.
thank you.
Thank you, Galen. We can have a You say a 2-second break?
No, 2 minutes.
Oh, 2-minute break, okay.
Hold on. Can't do anything, I have no audio. I'll just cut off the microphone here. I'm gonna go to Mark's week. No, we don't want to work. All right.
Move on.
Yeah. We're back on. That's why
Okay.
we could be.
Item 9, award bid for replacement of trackless machine as part of the FY 25 budget. Hi, Eric.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. On June 19th this year, we opened bids up for the sidewalk tractor that to replace our 2007 tractors that we currently own. We received 3 bids from Central Machine, HP Fairfield, and Chadwick Bay Ross. The low bid on this particular case was a Central Machine, which was multi-hog machine, $480,120. Our mechanic completely did some research on this. I want to talk to some of his colleagues in the industry that had purchased some of these machines. They had some mechanical issues with them, I think. But frankly, the work required of these sidewalk machines is quite intense in the winter time as well as summertime. Of course, we use them sidewalk for the roadside mowing. We also use it for clearing sidewalks in the winter. It's a multifaceted machine. We're also going to talk a little bit about the fact that we might want a cold planer that we want to place on this machine as well in the future for grinding paper. So, and I will, Lori will share with you. So the recommendation from Rick was to go to the second bidder in this particular case. We currently have a trackless. This is obviously a newer machine. We have the MT5. This is the MT7. It's the newer generation. In that particular case, all the attachments that we currently have are also interchangeable with the new machine. So the old machine's equipment will also be usable on this particular machine. So we would not have to do that. One of the follow-up recommendations also was to trade it. That is a cold cleaner. It grinds pavement, so we would grind around manholes, possibly put joints in, things like that. Or maybe if you have a really nasty pothole, sometimes you want to kind of square up that pothole and get it paved in properly.
We don't have that yet.
No, we don't.
Have one of those yet.
No, we do not have one of those. So the recommendation, so this is the follow-up recommendation from Rick, was to trade in our 2007 machine. He did do some research on what an auction it would typically go for, probably around anywhere between, I believe he said $2,000 to $6,500 typically at auction would go. We were offered $9,500 for our machine as a trade-in. And that would allow us to basically have the machine be purchased with a gear reduction box, and not to get into literally the nuts and bolts of this, but the gear reduction box will allow us to operate at a very low gear ratio. to be able to operate this cold planer. It requires a certain transmission, if you will, to be able to operate this, so. So the recommendation from Rick was to go forward with HP Fairfield. For the trackless MT7 at $199,401. The budget for this particular machine was $220,000. So we're certainly well within the budget for that.
But you also want the cold plane too.
Well, we're not purchasing the cold plant, but we want the gear reduction box.
Okay, so we're gonna have to have that in.
Yeah, well, that is all part of the trade-in. If we're able to trade in the MT5, the 2007 MT5, that will offset the cost of that gear reduction box. If we were to do it after we purchase the machine, Rick expected that cost would be around $20,000. So we're getting a good trade-in value, $9,500 for the machine. And we're also getting a good value for that gear reduction box at $9,500 versus around $20,000. So that's
So it's a swap.
it's
Okay.
Where do we get the cold?
the cold planner we'll look at and we'll budget that's in the future. I'm sure that's we'll have to do that research. It's also there may be multiple different types of cold planners out there, so we'll have to do research and try to get that budget accordingly.
I'd like to make a motion. That we purchase the trackless MT7 from HB Fairfield for $199,401.
Okay, I have a first and I set the second. Is there any more discussion?
I assume that motion meant that you were including the trade-in and the purchase of the gearbox.
Okay.
That's what she said.
Okay, I have a first and second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? 5-0. Thanks, Al.
Thank you very much.
10,
Useful toy.
update from staff regarding safety concerns at the intersection of Route 9 and Dyke Road.
All right, thank you. Our last meeting at the request of the board, we were asked to go and reach out to NDOT and speak to their people about possible improvements that we may be able to make at, or at least evaluate the safety issues that we may have at the Dyke Road, this Ross Road and Route 9 intersection. Chris Simeone, Chief Simeone and I went out and met with the regional traffic engineer, Randy Illiam, and met with him for quite a bit of time. And we just kind of walked through what the potential improvements that we could make short term, what the state could do, what the town could do, short term, medium term, and long term. And so what I've laid out for you folks in the memo was some of the short term things that the state will do. We had discussions as to the location of the 45-mile-an-hour sign could be a little bit closer to the Biddeford side, if you will, on Route 9, to give earlier warning on that 45-mile-an-hour zone to slow them down prior to the intersection. That was one of the short-term recommendations.
Is that before the intersection or would it be still after right now it's after the intersection, so you're done, it's too late.
Right.
You gotta put it
So it's
before.
towards Biddeford. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Is it in front of 5 Acre Farm?
Specific location, I think we talked about 500 feet for the intersection. 500 feet. Yeah, I mean, that was the recommendation of the
I'm
trend.
not giving this up. You guys are all, no, put your hands. So I think there's a couple things that I'm not sure I'd like your opinion on. Would the state be open to, because we do have hidden ponds, we have the bike traffic for them, we have the campground with walking traffic. We also have a couple of businesses there that pick up, so there's the little, gets a lot of traffic in there now, the little lobster house, and then 5 Acre Farm. So we have this slew now of the traffic, only give it for, a couple months out of the year. Would the state be open to moving that 45 mile? Because it's not like we're stopping traffic we're actually slowing traffic down. We go 45, 35, 25 by the time they get to Cape Corpus. So would the state be open to allowing them to start slowing down before they even hit Highway Farm so that we can get that slowing covered?
Well, we had talked about, it. I mean, based on the geometry, I would tell you that I think the traffic engineer, they would do a study of that area, and they've done a study of that area. And interestingly, he felt that the 45-mile-an-hour transition was about at the intersection, which sounds odd and not intuitive. I understand. That was WT's opinion. Moving the sign was something that I could do immediately at no cost to the town, which we felt that have, and then of course also couple that with possibly, more enforcement as well. And how we decide to enforce that, the police department. But, so I'm gonna try, if you don't mind, if I can walk through all the individual things here, because I think there's a lot more when we talk about, what we can do to help improve this. Other discussions like causing friction and doing these things, or creating an environment where you're gonna wanna slow down intuitively or naturally, which is often the best remedy. As we all know, that run of road is well over a mile of visibility. It's very easy to want to drive faster because of the road itself lends itself, because there's 10-foot shoulders on your side and an incredible amount of sight distance. So signage, don't always do it because it's used to say it feels like you can drive it, people can drive it at that speed. So my approach, at least my discussion with traffic engineers, is probably see the more of the long-term solutions that require some steps and process because it is a state road. So if I could just walk through these, and I guess maybe you folks can kind of go back and say, all right, well, we want to at least make sure we do something immediately. So more intersection warning signs, incoming signage is helps. I don't know how effective it is per se. Watch for pedestrian signs predominantly because we saw a lot of pedestrians walking in this area during that time. There's a lot of cyclists that go down to the beach. We did see that. And that raised some concerns, not concerns, but some kind of realities of most of the people that are coming from the campgrounds had to go beyond the island and cut behind the island and get to the walking path, which is on the opposite side of the intersection. So that kind of led us to talking about putting in stop bars, putting in an additional stop sign, and start to look at, talked about increased enforcement. That was the short term, but the medium term is when we started talking about a little more about the improvements at the island and possibly putting in a pedestrian refuge at the island, crossing Dyke Road at that location. That will create some more visibility, but also will place people on the opposite side of the island right now, but really just going into the lock and they're cutting up the island because they're not walking on the island. It's a short distance to go diagonally across that road. I think at least this will provide a clear stop location for people. That hasn't been a predominant violation. There have not been people blowing through that stop sign. There was, I believe, one incident the last 10 years that somebody had gone through that stop sign. Maybe it was, they just didn't fully stop. Most people can, know that you should stop that intersection, but having that crosswalk right there would assist. They talked about doing detectable warning panels there as well on both sides to more for ADA accessibility. And traffic calming signage, flashing stop sign, a beacon, but I don't think that's really what I've heard people's concerns. People's concerns are not about stopping, it's more about pulling out that. I think, yes, with the speed of the traffic coming onto them. That's when we get into the more intensive considerations here. So we talked about, you'll see number 3 medium term is they talked about doing a demonstration project. Demonstration project is really going in and we would evaluate the intersection, or the state would evaluate the intersection prior to this demonstration happening and after the demonstration. And what would involve in the demonstration is we may paint in an island, or we may paint in a location and possibly put reflectors and saying, and creating left going on the Goose Rocks, left going on the Dyke Road, if you're on Route 9. Do we create a pocket like that that causes people to move over and change that trajectory temporarily and kind of you have to move, then that's the friction I talk about, how you kind of create a pocket where somebody, but if we can only do a demonstration initially, and so that could be done in the short term if we find it to be effective, or if the state finds it to be effective and warranted. We have to design standards. I think I put it in the memo, I put in all the high limits to say required. So in a 45-mile-an-hour zone, the tapers have to be, the island has to be sort of lined and tapers and things like that. Just the geometry and things like that. So if it was successful and the state felt that that was warranted into the improvement to the intersection, at that point, we could go apply for an MPI, which is a shared project, traffic improvement project to put in an island, that location. It's kind of a little bit long term. Say this is something to do next week, but it'd probably take a year or so to just to get to that point.
I was gonna, so, and just make short term, install 45-mile-an-hour sign within 5 feet section sign. You're talking moving the forward, the revenue signs. If it's actually, it's beyond those rocks. Right. No, it's closely. But are you talking moving it toward Dyke Road as you're
Yes.
coming from the?
Yes.
I would, yeah, but I'm just saying. I would do that, maybe, it is, I'm done, you realize it's fast. I mean, but I think to your point, there's a lot that has. But if we can move something to 500 feet before Dyke Road, I think that needs to be.
But I like to put the 45 at the Biddeford boundary, to be honest with you. Because as Mary Beth was pointing out, you've got the Bryant Farm there, you've got Wolf, you've got New Biddeford Road coming in, you've got the fire station, you got a lot of stuff going on there. And those site distances, it's and I
So what do you guys think about the short term A, B, and C from the state? And then short term for A and B for the town? What do you think about it? Do you think that's enough for right now? Starting out?
Let's give it a try.
Why don't we give it a try and see how well it works and
I think short term.
Again, I'd also like to do that trial for the island. I think that, because visually, that's what people, I think that's the song that is to be able to see you're coming up to something that is. Well, we have, it's long term, but I think we ought to pursue it. They need to study.
Ellen's asked short term, I think A, B, and C is fine, we can do that. And short term. A and B makes sense. Let's, if we can get them immediately, then or as soon as possible, and then the rest we might move.
Like that, see. I'd like to add C town short term.
So I think, this is a good discussion with the state, and obviously you guys put a lot of thought into this, so I think along with the board, we should try, to see what we can. I do like, I do think I'd like the state to come in and do a study, but I don't want to lose the 45-mile. Because that then plays into enforcement. And if we can mentally start getting people to know that they just hit a speed sign, that shakes them out of their stupor of 55. It's like, okay, I got to slow down. And then there's something else. I think there's something there. If the state will allow us to at least look into, or if the state would at least hear us on that and potentially think it through and or come and talk to us or talk to you guys about that. But I would like them to take it, I'd like us to take their that.
So this preliminary, I'm telling you, response was really, you know. It's a typical engineering, right? He has he has a way of studying the speech standards. And things. So that he felt that it was was proper as it was. And it almost seems like maybe the intersection was but he understood that moving that sign certainly so prior to the intersection made sense. But he felt that the roadway probably would have met the typical standards for design for that traffic design. So I just want to, I mean, we can invite him, I'm not sure. Yeah, we can invite him.
I was just gonna remove the speed sign before. Yeah. Can you put one of those flashing things that we have on Dyke Road? Can that, would they allow you to do that?
I did talk to him about that. He didn't have a lot of faith that he.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just-
I mean,
but I mean, it probably
probably
wouldn't
kind
hurt.
I mean, yeah, and it is, I mean, he just didn't feel the. Yeah, like anything else, he's got these individuals study these things. Was it effective? Intersection? He didn't think so.
So I have to confess, my husband can attest to this, we almost hit 2 bikers there today. And so I think when I'm thinking through why we almost hit 2 bikers there, and we are bikers also, so my eyes are out for them, so it's not like I don't look for bikers. But I think that some of the stuff that you're thinking about will be interesting, because in this instance, as in some of the instances we've seen in the past that have been the close calls, people are sneaking around cars, and these 2 bikers were sneaking around the car that was in my line of sight, and then I was doing legally the turn that I should be making, and they were all of a sudden right in front of us. So I think there's this nuance of what's happening at the intersection with everything. But I would like to see the 45 of this last.
Well, then I'll say it again. I understand he's got his code in his book and it tells him he has to do this. What I'm asking, is there a way that we can ask that he does a little bit more than what the code says? That for our feeling as a board, that road in the summer, when it's busy, in the winter, it's probably absolutely. And I don't know what his thinking is, but probably more year. Anyway, can we at least ask if there's a process to appeal and have that side moved forward?
I know there are methods that we can do that we can have them restudy. And I think that happened here in North Street. You're right. I will happily go back and ask him again.
So I guess we're not gonna vote on this tonight? Well,
And then we're just asking for an additional, please do something else.
okay, so how about a motion?
Well, what did we all agree on? I guess we'll discuss. So I first want to thank Eric and the team for going through and doing this state. This is very thorough and it's greatly appreciated. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept Eric's proposal for both 1A through C, short term for the main DOT, item 2, short term for the town, A through C.
I would, well, okay, I would really like to see C, if you'd like to consider strongly doing it. I think that's.
You guys can.
Can't hear you,
I'm
John.
putting I'm putting the motion through and then we can discuss. So I say A through C. Item 3, medium term. I think we could consider these as continuing studies and get more feedback from yourself, from the town, to see what it impacts, and do you really considering it longer and what we. And item 4, long-term, likewise, I think that should get more further thought from yourself, Eric, based on, the ones that we did, item 1 and 2 above.
That's my motion.
Did you include C? Sorry.
And would you consider,
We're discussing.
would you consider just doing the 2 short-term items and see how that works before we get into a more complicated situation? What,
So I think what I said was that we would go ahead with 1 and 2, like she proposed. And then 3 and 4, you stated, yeah. And then 3 and 4, we would just ask Eric from the town to continue to review them to see if at further date, if he's gonna bring that forward again. So that. We just don't want.
we'll wait and see. I don't know. The other thing is, consider a traffic calming demonstration project. Again, do you want to see how moving the speed and all of that, you want to, you think it's that much of a problem? 10 accidents in 10 years.
Okay, so 10 accidents in 10 years, but I can, 9 accidents in 10 years, I cannot tell you, and I cannot put emphasis on how many close calls there are. And I keep saying to my husband, just like we almost hit 2 bikers today, and I want to tell you guys, I bike, I look for bikers, and I almost hit 2 people today, and I would have felt so horribly bad. So I'm sitting here because it would have been their fault. It would have been their fault, but I would have felt horribly bad. So I'm looking to see, and that's where C comes in, because I think C might help alleviate some of that craziness that happens at that. So calming is a great word. Let's see if calming can make it in.
Ditto.
One more discussion. What do you mean by, what does it say? A calming demonstration. What is
So
that?
demonstration projects, it would be easier if I had a wakeboard or something like that, where I could create an artificial island, and maybe I'm painting it in with say vertical PVC pipes with reflectors on it to allow for that traffic, but it's not inexpensive, actually, these items. Yes.
It's not getting.
So it would be basically a make-believe, not a make-believe island, it would be an island, but it wouldn't be a part. Right, so it would be something, these are things that are glued to the ground. And we would delineate, move them around. Let's think of it as having a temporary construction project where somebody's moving your lane over, should be. So we would create that environment.
So let me ask. We're at mid-August. We've all agreed that this problem is gonna go away, let's say within a month. I mean, not totally go away, but it's gonna go away, or it's gonna reduce itself in a month. That's gonna be a common situation. Do you have the staff time to do this calming project that's only for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Or is this something we can consider for the next season? I'm just looking, these guys are doing a lot of work. So I mean, do we have time to divert them now to Route 9, and put something for 3 weeks? You can answer that.
Okay, yes. So
But just before you answer that, it says consider, it doesn't say you have to do it now, that's what I'm saying.
there's expenditures to do this, right? There's real geometry that the state would accept, right? So this has to be designed in the field, laid out in the field. Make sure that we're not creating a hazardous situation for the traveling public. You need to make sure the tapers are correct, that the delineators are there. So first off, we need to design it, design the project. I would recommend, obviously, allocating some funding for this. And also would have the conversation about the crosswalk and things like that. What's involved in that? We do want a crosswalk across the island. So I would want to discuss all of this and probably just try to program it with the town. You folks, and for the possibly next CIP, implement it possibly this summer, because I still need the state to go in ahead of time. And do their study ahead of time, see what the speeds are, what they look like, so on and so forth. Because they'll only approve this after I do the demonstration project. And say, okay, that was effective. Because if it's not effective, they may not have, they may not have changes.
I know, but we're just gonna clarify, instead of consider, we're just gonna say to go off and do the preliminary study. For what you said, and then you can come back with the budget timeline, what's feasible or not, and this would be a next season implementation.
Yeah.
And in that time, we see if we have to do it.
Then the last step is really, we want to make this a hardened project, if you will. True traffic, like,
Yeah.
then it's the budgeting for that.
And then that would go into the next year's budget, which is great.
Short term, you could do A through, one A through C, and you could probably do two A and B if you. Oh,
Yes,
so-
but we're asking them to do 2C also and study, their study.
Well, I think the way this was written is,
I think the confusion is. There are some people who probably think this is gonna happen tomorrow. And it's not gonna happen tomorrow. Can we get the speed, the sign moved tomorrow? So,
So let me just clarify this statement. I think the proposal is that we do 1A, A through C, go do state. 2A, B, go do town. C, go do Eric and team study.
so,
And then most likely he'll come back with something, and then to Sheila's point, if it's still a problem or not a problem, then we'll address it then and then see what it is. And what is the,
so,
Ditto, the second, that,
the confusion a bit by wording.
Second, and
The-
there is no more discussion, correct? Okay, all in favor? 5-0, thank you. Thank you, Eric.
I want to see your pants tomorrow.
Okay, item 11, update from fire chief regarding progress on recommendations from public safety study.
Good evening. So, yeah, you remember back in March, we had the municipal resources need to do the study of the department and came up with recommendations. Most of our challenges are through staffing, so it has some of the issues on that and how we train and things like that. So the update on that part is, so on our training, it was they were looking for a more sophisticated and a better record keeping kind of system. I put in the budget for the 10-hour a week employee. So I'm happy to announce that we did hire Seth Kennebunkport. He's here tonight in the tie, dressed up even nicer than me, but I don't know if you wanted to, yeah, that's what I was gonna, you want to come up and just tell everybody at home, what your background is, briefly?
Hi, Seth Kennebunkport, 22-year resident in town, firefighter for 26 plus years. Paramedic as well. I worked down in New Hampshire, lived in town. Happy to be here.
So Seth's primary responsibility is gonna be, again, helping out with our training, but also, getting our SOPs in line, and that was two of the main things in the study. The development of the run card system, it's a long process because it involves an awful lot, but, working with the supervisory dispatch, RJ, we're moving it forward. But it's a long process to take sections of town and say, I'm gonna need this type of mutual aid to come in. Again, like I said, it's just a big process to get it all done. Areas with hydrants are obviously different, but in areas of town that don't have hydrants. Again, we covered the skills trainings. So we did do the market adjustment on the staff pay. That was good. So we also had developed a mentoring system. That was another recommendation. And it's done. We've been using it a little bit, and I actually am happy to say I have 3 new people that looks like they'll be going into it in the near future, waiting for background checks and things like that to come back. But that's good, and they're all in their 20s or younger. So that's great. Yeah. So the mentoring is just, I really worry sometimes about people falling through the cracks. If they don't get questions answered, or they don't feel like they can have somebody they can ask the questions to. I felt it was important to have that. The whole mentoring system has a criteria of objectives for them to meet. And the person who goes through it, the mentee, checks off that this is the training they've done. We did it on this date or at time and stuff. So it's good for tracking but it's also consistent. So if a mentor is at this station mentoring somebody, and there's somebody else that will respond normally because of where they live at a different station, they're getting the same program. So that we're covering all the bases that way. One of the other things that was brought up in the study was going to, per diems, and we know we don't have the crystal ball to say that, well, it's gonna happen tomorrow or next week. Our calls are over the last few years going up in numbers, even taking out the storms that we've had the past 2 Januaries. Which is, I won't say it's alarming, but it's gonna put more stress on the resources that we're using within the department, our people, to answer those calls. So that's one of the things we look at on when it's going to be time to go for to start up the per diem program. But in one of that was having the program space in order to do it. And so in looking at what we could do here to make this space for that, it was, and hand in hand with talking about possibly building the town hall next door. We had a couple good discussions on how we can do that, and actually made my space not smaller, because there still would be additions to the building for the fire department to have the spaces that we need to have per diems. But I don't need to have a big meeting room like this when, if the town hall is right over there, we could use it. And the same with, I need to have a smaller meeting room for the fire company to meet in. And if needed, the town hall could use that room as well. So instead of having 2 spaces that are basically the same size, things like that, where we can still share like we've been doing in this room since 2002 when it was built. So we've worked through that. We have what I think is a decent plan as far as the floor plan for our spaces, enough storage, enough to move in. If EMS were to come under the fire department at some point, it's factored into this plan of doing that, is having the spaces that we would need to house the vehicles, their equipment, and the per diems that are already working now for campus.
That's all you have?
Yeah.
Any questions? Board.
Oh, it wasn't that good.
Yeah, thanks. I think that was really good. But So we're thinking like a 5-year outlook, just roughly right when we're sort of talking through for potentially for the.
I mean, looking at what the numbers have been doing and I'm a numbers guy to a point, you know, because there's a lot of other factors that go into this that the numbers don't show. But when we're looking at things like our ratio of interior versus exterior only firefighters showing up at a call, we have a great average of between 12 and 13 people responding to every call. So to put that in perspective, they may not be all interior qualified, but to put that in perspective, Kennebunk, and yes, they're busier and all that, but they have 7 people working, 8 at the most. So we're getting more bodies. The way Kennebunk does it, because they have a paid staff and per diems, they're all interior qualified. But we're getting more people. And this is the most cost-effective way for the town to have the fire department. But in doing that, we're doing it as long as we can. But I would guess that 2 to 5 years would probably be, we'd be looking at it, and it's our run data that's going to drive that. 70% of our calls are during the day, during the week, when everybody is at work. So that's an issue for us as far as maintaining this system. The other struggle will be is once we push that per diem button, there's no going back to what we're doing right now. And it's been shown in other departments I've been part of, that, you know, the volunteer force now, or the call people that are on the department now, when there's per diems that are, well, they're being paid to go on that call, so they tend to show up a little bit less. And unless we're gonna put 4 people on that are interior qualified, you know, I envision starting out with 1 or 2. But in order to meet the 2 in, 2 out rule for those certain calls that I have to, I'm still gonna need 2 or 3 to come from home. So it's not that we don't need the call company, we still very much do. And I'm constantly saying to people that you all live in town, or most of us live in town. You want to maintain this as the call company it is. The only way to do that is to come out to the calls. That's what will help stave it off as long as possible. But to guess, it would be 2 to 5 years. If we go to 5 years and we're not doing per diem, I'd be very surprised.
Any more questions? Thank you, Jay.
Okay. Oops.
Okay. Consideration of FY 24 carry forward requests. Hello.
No. So in reviewing our fiscal 24.
Just pull it out, maybe be easier. I think she powered it off by accident.
Hello. Oh, there we go. Okay. So in reviewing our fiscal year 24 year end unaudited figures, we exceeded our budget revenue by approximately $500,000 and came in under our expenses roughly about 1.4 million, which included the over. So we sat down with each department to go over what they needed for carry forwards for this year, and gave you a list of those carry forwards, which would include unfinished projects, supplies, or needs that each department director needed for their department. And we're looking to carry forward $256,335 into the fiscal year 25 budget.
Any questions from the board? No question? You have one?
Well, you don't have to answer, you don't have the information, obviously, but is there, what were the main drivers for the revenue?
It was investment income.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, I believe Alan and I are on the finance committee, so I would like around.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the board?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we carry forward as requested on that form for fiscal year 24. $256,335.
Thank you. Have a first, do I have a second? First and second, any more discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, oh, I like this one. Confirm appointment of Eric LaBelle as Public Works Director. I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Well, I have a first and second, all in favor? 5-0, and congratulations, well deserved. We all want to thank you for all the work you've done. Absolutely, you've done a great job. Is there anything else you want me to say?
Just the wastewater, our crisis was.
Oh, okay.
That was just.
Wastewater, absolutely. I mean, everything's working. Yeah, well, everything's working fine, right? That's all we care. Yeah, great, thank you. I often do mine. Yeah. There's consideration of FEMA funding for Blue Sharks Beach dune restoration.
Great, this is.
Maybe you should go up to the podium.
So we'll all remember that we had one heck of a storm in January of this year. Just to recall the extent of the damage, this top is before the storm, that's September of 23. The purple outline is kind of the dune edge, the yellow, orange is showing you where the dense vegetation of the dune was. And then those same lines are imposed on a co-registered image, that's the same area. And you can see the extent of the damage. This was one heck of a storm. I've been working with FEMA, as I'm going to tell you in a minute, to look at what a 5-year storm looks like. And we've kind of determined what that is. We get about a 2-foot surge is the number we're working with to date. That may change. These storms are almost 4 feet of surge. Just to give you an example of the devastation that came from that storm. But so the next slide. FEMA has several categories you can apply for money, and the fire chief knows these all too well. He's our principal contact, and most of what we're doing is under a category G, the far right. And that's working with roads, playground, infrastructure that was damaged, I guess, physical infrastructure. We're looking more at B, at the emergency. This is a cool category. Oh, Jay.
I was just gonna bring it. What we're doing is under.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So what we're looking at for Goose Rocks Beach, next slide, please, is under B, and particularly, no, one back, that was actually this, a new slide. Just showing you the emergency and temporary repairs. So that's the element that we're slicing under for the repair of the sand dunes at Goose Rocks Beach. The next slide just gives you a little bit of what that emergency work could be. And it is permitted when that last bullet in a cost-effective manner to eliminate or reduce immediate threat of significant additional damage and improve to improved property and public property. And indeed, with that sand removed, or to say it better, if we put back that sand, we are helping to reduce, not eliminate, but reduce the threat of a January or another winter storm from damaging both Route 9, which is our a public area, on the private property of the homes along the beach. So the next slide. This is showing us the areas that we're proposing to work on. This is a proposal that I am really asking the board for their permission to let me continue to work on. In white is the area that's already been done. That's what we did in the spring in front of the Conservation Trust property. The new areas would be the what I call the northeast extension, which is going up through until you get to the granite seawall. And then likewise to the southwest is extending down until again you get to the granite seawall. Next slide. So just looking at this, there's about 12 property lots that are affected here. You can get your bearings. Jeffrey's Way comes in. So this would be the area. The yellow is the ballpark of where we would want to try to bring back to the height we had before the sand that was removed. And that's an important piece. I'd love to be able to build it bigger, but that under the emergency category B, we can't do. We can only return up to the height that was there, or 6 cubic yards, whichever is less, and the height that's there per foot. The height that's there would be the bounding condition. And then the southwest is the next slide. There's about 9 properties here that are affected, and that would be the area that we would like to restore. And then that would slide in nicely with what we've done at the Conservation Trust property. Next slide, please. So here's the proposal. If you're willing, we would continue. The fire chief and I have met with the FEMA representatives. We met down on the beach. They've encouraged us. They said this looks like it's going to be reasonable, but no promises, obviously. It would require about a 10% matching fund. So there are real dollars, although again, we're leveraging 10 cents on the dollar if we can get the FEMA money and the state's contribution. We still need to look at the permitting process. I was in touch with DEP today. It looks like the 16A is still available to us, so we'll approach it that way. Hopefully the piping plovers, they'll be gone, and we should be all right with Maine Geologic. That's the hope. We do need to just touch base with Amy to be sure that there aren't any legal issues, because we will be working close to personal property with their permission, and hopefully this is something that we can do to help protect the town's infrastructure. The next slide is we'll get some more. The goal is to do this before our main storm events in the winter. That's an aggressive goal, but all think it can be done if things go clearly, but there is absolutely no guarantee. I know there are a few folks on the beach that are considering doing this themselves. I will not discourage them. I think they need to get all their ducks in a row. Hopefully, we are going to know before they have to pull that trigger if we can do this as a sorted consortium, or whether we're going to have to go at it with individuals. Because again, without outside funding, i.e. the FEMA state, the town just isn't able to afford to do this. It's a long shot, but I think it's the best shot we got. And any final decisions in terms of signing the contract or accepting the contract, any costs would come to the select board for your approval. So this is not requesting that you give a go-ahead to do the work, rather just that you're willing to let us proceed and see if we can get it.
Are you gonna have to haul in more sand?
No, not at all. And again, because of the unique characteristic of our sand, as we did with the KCT property, we're going to scrape from the low tide. We're actually going to take about 6 inches, and you can scrape that up, and it gives you enough volume to replace the sand. We're replacing sand that normal process the wind would have placed there. So we're really not changing the profile of the beach. The wonderful, we're so blessed in that our sand stays within our arcs. It just moves back and forth from the west to the east end. Mother Nature. One more time, yeah, it is, you gotta feel it, you gotta feel it, you gotta feel it, and, but what we're lacking is the time to allow Mother Nature's wind to build our sand dunes. The repetitive storms are not giving the 3 to 4 to 5 years that we normally have to build back what the winter storm, a major winter storm, would take away. So we're gonna help Mom out. And we're going to take a little of that sand off the beach and move it up into the dune area.
Okay, so I think this is good. I would just like to propose that if we get in with FEMA and there's a stratification of priorities. I'd like to just throw out some comments about priorities. I would like to see the northeast section. And even just part of that as a priority, which is Jeffers Way, that got hit significantly hard, and that is our access for emergency vehicles to the beach. And the second thing there is during the last storm, we got water all the way down Jeffers Way into that area, so we couldn't get, you know, we have 2 access roads in, and we really count
Far
on,
west end.
yeah, we really count on New Bedford Road because Dyke is usually underwater. So New Bedford now took a hit because water just came up Jeffrey. So we did get into a situation with priority. I would give guidance or a wish that we would concentrate sort of in that zone first, because we have done under your guidance, you know, with the Conservation Trust, those areas that were the water issues further down in front of the conservation, the white area that you showed.
The
where we already
intent, I think it's really going to be all of this. I couldn't conceive that there would be a choice, but good to know. Thank you.
Okay, now I'll make a motion.
No. If you're saying, okay, go, then you're gonna. Yeah, it's gonna have to be planted. That's state law. So, and the beauty of that is because it's state law, FEMA will cover the cost of the planting. So that's good news. So, but when, you know, when it's in October, that's gonna be interesting. If we do this in December, I don't know, maybe you wait till, I don't know when the planting will be done, but the cost will be done. At least that's the current understanding. Things can change.
Sounds like a deal to me. Okay, authorization of calling the beach license.
So as you know, Colony Beach and the parking area is owned mostly by the Army Corps of Engineers, and a portion is owned by the Colony Hotel. The town does have a piece of it as a right of way into the parking lot. So in 2023, we had storm damage to the parking lot, and the board considered putting funds to replenish that. We only had one half of the parking lot open in the summer of 2023. In January, we had additional damage, and the parking lot was not available to house vehicles on it. Certainly, the beach could still be open, and we closed Colony Beach. We did have conversations with Army Corps of Engineers about maintenance and repair of that parking area. They told us that they did not have the funding nor the desire to entertain that, since their concern was the jetties, and as long as their infrastructure was in good shape, then they did not wish to participate. We did ask Army Corps for permission to do the maintenance if we should so chose, and we do need their permission in order to go before DEP and other agencies for permitting. I'm not suggesting we're ready to do that work at this point. We still are questioning what's the best method to move forward. But if you have any desire to, I have finally received a license agreement from the Army Corps of Engineers that would give you 5 years to maintain that parking lot.
Any discussion? Question?
It allows but does not mandate.
So I need a motion.
So I'd like to make a motion to, since agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers, to allow us to enter into potentially a, parking improvement, within a 5-year period.
Second.
I have a first and second. Any more discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Okay. Item 16. Vote on the Maine Municipal Association annual election.
So each year as a Maine Municipal Association member, we vote on both the Legislative Policy Committee as well as the Executive Board. In your packet is the slate of officers. They have been nominated to fill those roles. For Vice President is Justin Boyer, the Town Manager of Monmouth. And on the Executive Committee for 3-year terms, David Seer of Frenchville and Matthew Garside from Poland.
So I need a motion.
So moved.
I have a first and I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Okay, accept the following donations. Staff recommends acceptance with much gratitude. $25 from Sandra Day, the Journal Nurses account. $50 from an anonymous donor to the Journal Nurses account. $50 from another anonymous donor to the Journal Nurses account. $50 for another anonymous donor to the Journal Nurses account. $100 from Gail Preble to the Journal Nurses account. And $200 from an anonymous donor to the Journal Nurses account.
So moved.
I have a first and second. Any more discussion? Hearing none? Well, I'm not done yet. All in favor? 5-0, and this is with much gratitude. Item 18, other business.
Done. The only business I want to share is that I have finally met with everyone on the planning and the library. My two committees that I am responsible. Be careful, or there's a video going in.
Okay, all right, so I just have a quick one. I just wanted to make sure that we've got it documented. I would like to, have Cameron look at it. Potentially to, what it would take to allow, residents to build some kind of structure to house their garbage, containers on the property. I think that, needs to be looked at, what would have to be. And the second thing is just a question. And Lori, maybe it's a question to you. In committees and stuff, how does the process work? Does the process work such that, can certain committees go into agreements with residents or change, town access where we might have had like public parking or public access, or do all those things always come to the board?
So the Shade Tree Committee does have authority to enter into cost share agreements with residents when they're talking about tree maintenance or tree removal with tag trees. I would say, I can't think of an agreement per se. Certainly the cemetery committee works with private property owners, where a lot of our cemeteries are. Just in terms of access and, again, maintenance of cemeteries.
But for the most part, there are very few exceptions that those decisions would come to.
I guess it's just to clarify that, so who's accountable if there's public parking ability on a private property? And then somebody wants to change that, is that like in a planning board or a zoning board, or do things that affect the public have to come back to
So
the?
this sounds like a very specific scenario. And since you are surprising me, perhaps we would like to talk about it and do some research. I don't want to answer incorrectly. It sounds like a specific set of details.
Yes, I apologize. I didn't mean to catch you off guard. I thought maybe this would be an easy one that I could just put my brain to rest, but we will talk.
Okay.
But yes, thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to, by any means, I did not mean, I just thought it might be something easy, but I can see. Thanks. Done.
Nothing to add.
Nothing here.
I'm all set.
Yanina has an announcement. So we, this is gonna be our second year for a Citizens Academy that, it started last year, and it's a 5 weeks program for the residents of Kennebunkport. I think last year was very successful, and the success, one of the parts of success sits right here, David Bancroft, who went through the Citizens Academy and decided to run for the board. So great, yes. So I invite anyone who would like to learn about government to join the academy. You will have to commit to 5 Wednesdays from 6 to 7:30, and it's quite fun. We're gonna tour different facilities. We're gonna talk about budget. We're gonna talk about committees, and do a lot of fun things. So please join if you're interested, and email me or call me. You can find information on the website.
You're all set. Okay, approve the August 8th, 2024 warrant. I have a first, I have a second, all in favor? 5-0.
Adjourn. Move to adjourn.
I have first and second, all in favor? Good night, everyone.